CEO, you have a call.
Good evening, councillors, staff and member of the public. Welcome to this ordinary meeting of Blue Mountains City Council held on 28 April 2026 in the council chambers in Katoomba. Members of the public are not allowed to speak at council meetings. However, there is an opportunity for the public to speak at a public forum held prior to the council meeting if they register in advance. Members of the public are able to submit questions and comments before council meetings through the council website or over the phone. And for tonight, no registrations have been received, so there will be no public forum. We'll go straight to the council meeting. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded. As all statements made at the meeting will be recorded, your image and voice may be recognised by other people, and they may be aware that you've attended the meeting. So your continued attendance at this meeting after this statement is made is taken as your consent to your voice being recorded. The recording will be available on the council's website for 12 months after the upload date, and the meeting must not be recorded by any other party other than the council. Council is not responsible for the statements of any individuals made during the meeting, and any defamatory statements or any statements which include personal or confidential information are the sole responsibility of the individual making them. The Code of Meeting Practice sets standards of conduct for a council meeting. If any person in attendance acts in a disorderly manner or a person makes defamatory or unacceptable comments, then the meeting may be interrupted by the Mayor or by me, the Chief Executive Officer, and appropriate action taken. And should for any reason we need to vacate the chambers, I'd really appreciate if you'd follow the directions of council staff. Ask you all now to be upstanding for the Mayor.
Good evening, and just remind the CEO that we are live streamed, so there may be other members of the public watching on live stream. Good evening, councillors, staff and members of the public. The City of Blue Mountains is located within the country of the Darug and the Gundungurra peoples. The Blue Mountains City Council recognises that Darug and Gundungurra traditional owners have a continuous and deep connection to their country, and that this is of great cultural significance to Aboriginal people both locally and in the region. For Darug and Gundungurra people, Nura takes in everything within the physical, cultural and spiritual landscape. Landforms, waters, air, trees, rocks, plants, animals, foods, medicines, minerals, stories and special places. It includes cultural practice, kinship, knowledge, songs, stories and art, as well as spiritual beings and people, past, present and future. Blue Mountains City Council pays respect to elders past and present while recognising the strength, capacity and resilience of past and present Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the Blue Mountains region. Please be seated. I have one apology, and that's standing in the name of Councillor Darren Rodrigo. It's moved Councillor Fell, seconded Councillor Buckham that we accept his apologies. All those in favour, against, declare it carried unanimously. Ordinary meeting held on 31 March. I just get a motion for that to be passed. Councillor West, Councillor Miles, all those in favour, against, declare it carried unanimously, and I'll sign it to 28th tonight, isn't it? Yeah, thank you. It is. Okay, thank you. All right, so there are some mayoral, there's one mayoral matter of urgency to deal with tonight, and that relates to our declarations of interest first. Are there any declarations? Councillor Van Opdorp.
It's a non-pecuniary declaration in that my daughter Nikki Van Opdorp has joined the Domestic Violence Committee as she's been newly appointed to the DV West Refuge in Katoomba.
Okay, do you intend to stay in the room?
Yes. Well, I don't know.
So it's the committee you chair and it's your daughter? I would suggest not.
Okay.
Yep. I think the optics of that might be a bit, yeah, so it might be better if you leave the room. Thanks, Councillor Van Opdorp. So any other declarations? Councillor Hollywood.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would just like to declare a non-significant pecuniary interest in relation to the item, that's the urgency motion, so I don't know whether it has a number, about glamping.
Yep.
I am the chair of the National Parks and Wildlife Advisory Council, and we may be briefed on this, I don't know, but I would like to leave the room just so I'm not preempting a position based prior to being briefed in that role, and also that I am chair of that committee, so I need to be seen to be impartial. Thank you.
All right, so on both declarations, I just want to address the councillors directly. I think it is advisable on both declarations, on both items, you leave the room. Councillor Van Opdorp, I know that means you can't pass comment on the work of the committee, but yes, Suzanne can pick that up for you. Councillor Jamieson can pick that up for you. But I think in circumstances where you chair the committee and it is your daughter, I think you're wise not to vote on that. And Councillor Hollywood, equally, I think given that you chair the advisory committee for national parks, it's wise for you to opt out of the room. So I think both councillors are doing the right thing. So I think both those items will be out anyway, but we'll ensure they are. All right. What I might do is I might just go through mayoral matters of urgency and then mayoral minutes, and then we'll do exclusions. So that brings us to mayoral matter of urgency number 1. I have withdrawn mayoral matter of urgency number 2 based on a discussion with the CEO today, and I'm indebted to the CEO and to the director for the information I'll be given this afternoon. So that matter has been withdrawn. Mayoral matter of urgency number 1, standing in my name, is moved me, second of the Deputy Mayor, councillors. Every 3 years, the Valuer General re-evaluates the unimproved value of land across the Blue Mountains. Now, rates are set on the basis of those valuations. Every 3 years, there is a rebalancing. That's really important. This is understood. The council gets no extra revenue from the re-evaluations. It's like a waterbed. We get the one amount of money, but it's redistributed, that's all. So one end of the waterbed goes up, the other goes down to correspond, but the volume remains the same. So we get roughly, and this is not the right figure, but it's in the ballpark, around 92 million in rates each year. It's 92, despite these re-evaluations. Now, for the last 3 occasions, the valuations have been radical in the Blue Mountains. We've raised this with the Valuer General. In fact, they came and addressed us 2 valuations ago and promised us it wouldn't happen. So 3 evaluations ago, the lower mountains got whacked. They went up and there was a lowering of rates elsewhere. Then the next round of valuations, mid-mountains got whacked and there was a flattening out elsewhere to correspond. This time, wards 3 and 4 get whacked and there's a flattening out elsewhere and indeed reductions in rates. Now, those residents will see their rates go up and they'll think council's doing it. We're not. Not only are we not involved in that process, we get no say. We're not asked. You can search the business papers of this council and you will not find a resolution on this issue because we've expressed no view, we've not been asked. So, in fact, if you search resolutions of this council, the only views you'll find in years past is us opposing the radical whacks that some parts of the mountains get with these wild re-evaluations. Now, in this instance, the other issue, residents raise is, well, if my rates are going up, the council's surely getting more money, so I'll see more things done. Well, as I've explained, we don't. The volume remains the same, it's just redistributed. Now, in this round, the lower Blue Mountains will get belted with rate increases driven by the Valuer General. We had no role in that. We had no say in that. We get no extra revenue from that. And what this mayoral minute does is it sets out a position that we'll take to state government, because the Valuer General sits at the state level of government, that they should subsidise any increases in the mountains. One, because they've always been, the last 3 cycles, the last 9 years, they've been radical shifts in the mountains, more radical than elsewhere. And secondly, we're in the middle of a cost of living crisis. So if they can't get their act right and balance valuations appropriately, then our residents shouldn't have to pay for that. Now, in the days of yore, when Councillor Miles and I were on council, and we both are the last of the class of 99, re-evaluations weren't even commented on. The shifts were so small that you never heard about it. 99, 2000, 2001, 2002 and onwards, you never heard about it. It was, up until 3 cycles ago, always uncontroversial. And then these things happened. These radical redistributions would happen each 3 years. Now, what I think's occurred is that the Valuer General hasn't got it right in the Blue Mountains, keeps getting it wrong, and then radically readjusts to try and balance it and get it right, and our residents get hurt. Now, I look at places like Hawkesbury Heights and Warramoo that are going to get hit really hard with double-digit increases. I recognise that they're actually 2 townships really adversely affected by aircraft noise, and they're going to get a major increase in rates and we get no more revenue from it. Enough. So we oppose these radical shifts. We insist that any increases are actually ameliorated through state government action, and we ask the Valuer General to get it right. Does the seconder wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think you've said it all, but it is a really important issue.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to say anything on that matter? All right, there's one matter before us. I'll put it. All those in favour? Against, declare carried unanimously. All right. Mayoral minute number 1, standing in my name, is seconded by the Deputy Mayor. And this relates to the cessation of funding to the Department of Communities and cessation of Department of Community Justice grant funding. The Department of Communities and Justice, which we all know as DCJ, has advised us that funding for local government to deliver services under the Community and Family Supports Program, which was previously known as TEI, Targeted Early Intervention, will cease. Now, our council has for many years received funding from the department in this respect. And the reason we've received that funding is so that we can undertake community sector coordination and community sector planning for early childhood and also in the youth sector. Due to the New South Wales Department of Community and Justice decision during the recommissioning process this year, local government is no longer eligible to receive funding for the activities of the community sector coordination nor community sector planning, and therefore funding will cease altogether for these activities, not partially, altogether on the 1st of July 2027. Now, there is transitional funding from DCJ until 30 June 2027. The funding has been restricted, though, that transitional funding, to the purchase of materials for the delivery of frontline services. So Council is no longer committed to use any DCJ grant money for wages, which had been the case for previous years. The wages of people working for the most vulnerable in our community. So Council will need to fully cover the costs of that so that we're able to deliver the programs for this year. So from 1 July 2027, there'll be no further funding from the Department of Community and Justice for local government, and a funding reduction to the Blue Mountains of nearly $70,000. The discontinuance of this funding will impact the services Council is able to provide. This is a very serious change. It's not something I would have expected from a progressive, so-called progressive government. The last lot you would expect would be more inclined to do something like this than this lot. So what I want to do is write to our local member and have her make representations on our behalf to ensure that our voice is heard. What I want you to back me in doing is noting what I've just told you, noting the changes, noting that community sector coordination and planning is needed to support the early childhood and youth sector, and that funding for this is actually a priority. And then I want you to back me in writing under my signature to our local MP and the Minister for Families and Communities, the Minister for Disability Inclusion, expressing the impacts of the changes and requesting that funding for local government is reconsidered and continued. Thank you. Deputy Mayor, wish to speak? Please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that this is a really important motion. It is a little bit concerning that local councils, not just ours, but all local councils are not able to apply for this funding. To me, it's a form of, it's a blatant form of cost shifting, because councils will still be doing much of this work, because we find ourselves being called upon to do that work, particularly in the absence of state government coordinating agencies at the local level. And we know that through bushfire recovery and disaster recovery in general, that much is left to local government because we are the experts in this local area. And I just wanted to share a recent story that I think really demonstrates the way people come to council, but also how council can facilitate community work and actions. And the example was the Dementia Forum that was held on the 18th of April 2026, so only a few weeks ago. And I just want to say I attended the beginning of that forum, and one of the things that the organisers said, so this is the Blue Mountains Dementia Action Group, that they didn't know how to get started, and they came to council and spoke to our fantastic community development team, and also received some initial seed funding from the mayor, but also from some councillors. And what they were saying and feeding back to the over 100 people who were at that forum was that it was really local government, our council, that helped them find their way, to build their confidence, to know how they would reach out to the community. Now, you might actually say, well, the Dementia Action Forum, this is about older people, not what we're talking about today. But in fact, one of the sessions was actually on early childhood dementia. And also we need to remember that families can be caring for children and also caring for ageing parents. So this is an example of the kind of work that councils can do really well, and it can really make a difference to individuals and also to community groups that are seeking to do a little bit more in our community. So fully support this.
Thank you. Anyone further? Yep, Councillor Redshaw.
Thank you, and thank you for this motion, Mr. Mayor, and Deputy Mayor, for your comments. Unfortunately, it's another example of this government taking away the specific needs of communities, which it's want to do in talking about if, as Trish Doyle, our MP, mentioned the other day, if you say, well, the Blue Mountains are different, the government says, oh, well, everyone says that. Well, yes, everyone says that because it's true. Each community has their own needs and they need to be taken into account. And that's what this kind of funding is about. As you've pointed out, Deputy Mayor, it's about the community knowing what's needed and being able to honour that and acknowledge that and make a contribution to it. So it's a shame that we're in this position where increasingly things are being taken away from the community level. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Van Opdorp.
Thanks for putting this minute. I just wanted to say the invaluable work that the staff here do in supporting community organisations. So quite apart from the loss of funding to council, I think it also jeopardises the work of the broader community sector, because these roles are integral to coordination and the provision of services. So to try to say that they're saving money on non-direct service is a furphy, because without those coordination roles, community organisations will struggle to have capacity to plan, and to deliver services to their communities.
Anything further? Thank you for that debate. There's one matter before us. I'll put it. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried unanimously. Can I ask for a procedural motion that on mayoral minute number 2, the mayor and mayor only speak without time limit, because this is a really important issue. Moved Councillor Fell, seconded Councillor West. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. Mayoral minute number 2, staying in my name, is moved by me and seconded by the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Hollywood. Councillors, I've asked for you to support me in speaking to this without time limit, because this is actually an incredibly significant issue for the Blue Mountains. The state significant proposal at Narrowneck was placed on public exhibition by the state government for 14 days, from the 17th of April to the 30th of April this year. There is no direct notification of the Blue Mountains community at all, and the time frame is obviously incredibly short. Because there's been no notification directly to the community of this, we don't regard this in any way as meaningful consultation. So, based on a resolution of this council, our staff undertook a direct letterbox drop with a radius of around 2 kilometres of the site, that is 142 to 150 Narrowneck Road, Katoomba, on the 17th of this month. And this notification advised around about 1,000 residents of the need for public submissions to be made. It also allowed us to hold a public meeting, which we did, and that public meeting was held last week on the 23rd of April. I know some councillors were present. That public forum was a huge success, and it was attended by a very large number of people. I do want to thank our team, Will and the team, for running the forum the way they did, and the feedback I've got from the community is absolutely fantastic. So now where are we? We have a proposal that fails in almost every respect. And I said in the media a couple of things about this. Firstly, in what was apparently the most read article last year's Gazette online, I said we don't need crap like this here, and we don't. The second thing I've said about this is that it is the worst proposal we have ever seen. And I know the director, who is not known for radical speech, will support me in that. He's actually nodding. He's a cautious and person. He doesn't, not a politician like me, but when he says it's the worst he's seen, you know that you're talking about something very significant. He will hate me mentioning him. He hates it when I get him in the newspaper, but I do raise it tonight because his words were very important. Now, you will note that there was a mayoral minute from me on the 31st of March this year, and we expressed a great deal of concern about the very fact that this got through the SSD, State Significant Development Proposal process, based on the use of an AI tool that really has been discredited significantly since. This State Significant Proposal at Narrowneck does not represent the type of housing we actually need during the housing crisis. It doesn't represent that. So when people come back to you and say, oh, in the middle of a housing crisis, we need this, they're actually wrong. And it's an ill-informed and ignorant comment. And when I say ignorant, I don't mean that in the sense that these people are nasty, ignorant as in ill-informed. And it's a little wonder that they're ill-informed, because this consultation process seeks to avoid informing people, as I've just mentioned. So importantly, the proposal will only include a very small proportion of affordable housing. It's 15% of floor space, but only for 15 years. That's it. Approximately 50 of the proposed apartments will be used for short-term rental accommodation. As if we didn't have enough renters being pushed out of the market by that process now, we're going to have more of it. The rest of the apartments will essentially be for the wealthy. Fantastic views, badly overshadowed, will be how they won't use the overshadowing in the marketing. Fantastic views will be part of the marketing, although when they move in they'll be disappointed because they're dreadfully overshadowed. But this is not a development that addresses the housing crisis. It doesn't do that. It doesn't achieve that. It doesn't really pretend to. The bushfire issue is an interesting one, and I think I'm right. I certainly hope I'm right in saying this, because I said it on 7:02 this afternoon live. But here's what I understand. The land was zoned bushfire risk, was noted bushfire risk, on the day the proposal was lodged. The day after, or a couple of days after, that was suddenly changed. And it's no longer noted as bushfire risk. Now that's odd. That's worthy, I think, of some scrutiny. I'm not given to conspiracy theories at all. But that, to me, is a heck of a coincidence. If it is that, well, okay, but it is a heck of a coincidence. The currently exhibited proposal has not appropriately considered bushfire risk, in my opinion. The package of public documents do not include a strategic bushfire assessment, which is actually required under ministerial direction, and the RFS Planning for Bushfire Protection legislation 2019 also requires it, yet it's not there. The planning proposal that will affect, or any planning proposal that will affect, or is in proximity to land mapped as bushfire-prone land, has to comply with those directives. And even if you accept that the odd withdrawal of this particular piece of land from that category, the day or 2 days after it's lodged, is genuine, it still adjoins bushfire-prone land to the southeast, to the southwest, and to the northwest. So it's clearly in proximity to bushfire-prone land, as shown in the various documents that you have seen. And I have written in the last couple of weeks directly to the Minister, pointing that out. And I'm hoping that there'll be some correspondence from the RFS to that effect shortly. It's our understanding that the RFS has not been engaged to review the conditions of the site for the proposal for rezoning and the increase in density that will occur, because that classification was withdrawn the day after or 2 days after the proposal was lodged. Now, bushfire-prone land forever and a day until this is lodged, suddenly not, and on that basis RFS is not consulted. Now, 2 years into my mayoralty, 2 houses burnt down in close proximity to where this development is going to be. And we all saw what happened to escarpment land during Black Summer. And yet the RFS was not consulted. Why? Because the classification was suddenly changed. Well, we've engaged with them. And my understanding is the Bushfire Committee will be meeting shortly, in fact this week, to consider the very issue, not because the state government referred it there, but because we did, because we referred it there. And I'm indebted to Councillor Rodrigo as chair, who's put it on the agenda. The letter that went to the Minister, alerting the Minister to bushfire risk, didn't come under RFS signature, it came under my signature, because RFS wasn't consulted for the reasons I've just outlined. I'm indebted again to the Director and to his team for drafting that letter that went under my signature. Now, a doubling of density and then some, possibly a tripling or quadrupling of density on that site as compared to what would be allowed under our LEP, is completely unacceptable. The result of the application will result in significant adverse environmental impacts, and there will be a visual impact right across Katoomba. If you look from any high point in Katoomba, you will see these cement blocks blighting the escarpment in a World Heritage Area. And there'll be substantial overshadowing and privacy impacts for nearby residents. And we've made sure that's included in the submission we've made. The exhibited proposal has not considered relevant provisions like slope constraint, like escarpment constraint, and will result in a development that is completely antithetical to the objectives of our long-held and fine-grained planning principles in the mountains. So not only does it not comprehend those, it fundamentally repudiates those principles. The vast majority of the vegetation on the northern end of the site, which is heavily vegetated now, with mature trees, will be removed under the exhibited proposal. And that actually equates to literally thousands of square metres of lost bushland on the escarpment of the Blue Mountains in one of its most iconic locations. The site is, of course, located within the Sydney drinking water catchment. And the downstream receiving environment is the Kadumba Creek and the World Heritage National Park. So what we are looking at is, as I have said, as the Director has said, the worst proposal of its type we have ever seen. And I am deeply concerned about the bushfire classification being changed so soon after the application went in. And I'll look to the Director to nod or shake his head, but it certainly was within a week, I think. Director?
Through the CEO, the site was identified as bushfire-prone land in 2002 when the substantial amendments were made to the Act, and councils would be aware of planning for bushfire protection at that time. That bushfire-prone land status was constant in the map commissioned by the RFS. When the application was lodged with the Housing Delivery Authority, the land was bushfire-prone. When the Housing Delivery Authority considered the application, it was bushfire-prone. That's significant because bushfire-prone land is an exclusion, which means it can't go through the HTA process. The land was bushfire-prone when the Minister declared the site and the proposal to be state significant development. The Minister understood that the land was bushfire-prone when he made his decision. One day after that decision was made, the RFS amended the plan to remove the bushfire-prone land status.
Thank you, Director. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. And Councillor Jamieson uttered the word ICAC, and we may yet visit that. This is really significant, councillors. The worst proposal we've seen. Think of all the issues that I've outlined, and then go to the process the Director and I have outlined to you tonight, and this is a significant worry. So, councillors, this resolution tonight calls for you again to do some work. And that work is, I want you to back me in the points set out at 2A through to H, 3, 4, and through to 5. Councillors, thank you. That's it for me. Does the seconder wish to speak? And we'll resume time limits now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will reserve my right, but I'm very concerned about this, obviously.
Thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Van Opdorp has the call.
Firstly, I want to thank you, Mayor, for the minute. I also want to thank the staff for preparing and presenting at last week's meeting, which was really well attended with at least 100 people. It was a bit hard to gauge in that room, but it was a large number of people, all who were there to support council's position and to share their concerns about the development. I think most people know that I feel really passionately about social and affordable housing. This really is not, it's not an affordable housing proposal. I cannot support it. Equally, it's an overdevelopment of the site that has a lot of constraints. It cuts across our LEP, undermining the environmental impact and other impacts of the project. There's a significant impact on the local residents whose amenity will also be affected. I think people here will want to vote in support of the recommendations, as I certainly do, so thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Van Opdorp. Any further? One matter before us? Or... Right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I rise to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your opposition to this outrageous development. Look, I was my first fire as a firefighter in 2013 was up on 2014. Was at those two houses that you mentioned in this very, very bushfire-prone zone. I have grave concerns about the intensity of the development that is proposed for this site. It was an honour to be present with a packed hall at Timmy Wayland Hall, and I want to thank the council staff for taking the initiative to leaflet the community, to get the people to that hall, and to explain with the clarity and concision that they were able to just what an inappropriate development this is. I particularly want to place on the record my concern at the truncation of the period for public consultation. This has been a matter which has come up on Thomas Aridi's Drive show a couple of times in the last few weeks, and I was listening to your comments today, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for them. But I'm a little bit disappointed in Thomas for not doing his research and failing to pin it on the minister. Last week when Minister Scully was speaking on the show, to hold the minister to account for halving the planning, the public consultation period on state significant developments from 28 days under the old regime down to 14. And I thought probably a bit more could have been made of that in today's interview as well. It does seem to me that Thomas has not pressed the government as hard on this evisceration of the planning system that has resulted in this development proposal, and I fear will result in us seeing this development go through. If it does go through, it will stand as a monument to the evisceration of the planning system by the Minns Labor government, and I think it's an absolute travesty. The movement, the planning and environmental movement, fought tooth and nail against the planning reforms that have delivered this proposal. And I just want to use a few moments with the remaining period I have to speak on this, just to outline some of those concerns that were raised against the proposed Housing Development Authority and the broader New South Wales Planning System Reforms Bill 2025. It bypasses local government and the democratic planning processes. The HDA pathway allows major residential housing developments to bypass local councils, projects above $60 million in the Greater Sydney and $30 million in regional areas to be fast-tracked through a state-led process. And this is the first, as Mr. Langeveld pointed out at the public meeting, this is the first of these developments, among the first, that has been proposed. All of the others are around central, or the Sydney Basin, and yet this one is right out here in the peri-urban area in a completely inappropriate location. It's not just the movements that have been railing against this, but delegates at the local government New South Wales annual conference have unanimously condemned the move, arguing that the process is undemocratic and adds more uncertainty to the planning system, potentially encouraging developers to abandon already approved sites and lodge new applications. Secondly, it involves an enormous concentration of ministerial power and a lack of independent oversight. Thirdly, it involves a radical weakening of environmental protections. The Environmental Defender's Office has raised enormous and significant concerns that the bill purported to relate to housing but would affect all types of development, and environmental considerations would still be weakened even after amendments were negotiated in the lower house. The targeted assessment pathway allows applications that would not be required to consider environmental impact, site suitability or the public interest, exactly what we have on our doorstep here. As I've referred to, it involves a radical reduction of community participation rights. It strips back community participation rights, and in spite of very strong calls for those to be reinstated, they were completely ignored by the government when the legislation was rammed through. Look, there are integrity and corruption risks that were raised at the time. ICAC wasn't consulted, and the absence of affordable housing requirements in the bill was also a subject of great community protest.
Yes, Councillor Hoare, if you were making any assertion that there was corruption involved, I would distance the chamber from those comments.
No, not at all.
Good, as I would from your criticism of 702 as well. It was your own criticism. All right, thank you. Councillor Jamieson has the call.
Thanks very much. I don't want this to be an opportunity for political blame shifting.
Order.
My understanding is the broad architecture of the planning system we have now is an overhaul what I saw created in the 1970s during the period of the Rann government. A dear friend of mine was the principal architect of that at the time. That's 50 years ago, but my understanding is that the architecture now was largely put in place in 2016, not recently, and not largely by the Minns government. The Deputy Mayor might pick some of these things up. This is not an opportunity, I think, to be slagging a Labor government. I think we should be united in our opposition to the development itself. As Councillor Van Opdorp has said, it's certainly not designed to provide much needed social amenity for people without housing. It's a very great crisis across the state. It's not going to be fixed by a couple of very pricey home units in a building 3 kilometres from the railway station in Katoomba. The whole suggestion of the development is ludicrous in the extreme, as all of the speakers have suggested. I think we should keep it fairly simple to those issues that the Mayor has mentioned in his minute and not engage in this he said, I said, she said stuff, or trying to blame the Labor government. But we should go to the nub of the problem, which have been pointed out by the professional staff of the council, and they've done a spectacularly splendid job, reminding anyone who's listening that you've only got a day and a half to get any submission in. I'm going to be writing mine tonight, unfortunately. But I think we should pick up on the very issues that the Mayor has mentioned in his motion.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Jamieson. And I think the issue, using issues like this as an opportunity to party political point score misses the merits of the argument.
Precisely.
And I think that's your point. Thank you. Councillor Miles has the call.
Well, here we go again with Councillor Hore arguing strongly against something that he would actually support were it in Ward 3, were it on Springwood Golf Course. And we have seen this before, and this is playing politics. This is playing politics against the Labor government, and I'll come to that in a moment. But this is the same Councillor Hore who went to a meeting before the 2021 council election, actively lobbying for this style of development to occur.
Councillor Hore.
No personal interest, but because...
That is factually not correct. But
Councillor Hore, there's no point of order. If you go to the standing orders and tell me what your point of order is, but getting up and arguing the case is not what you're about. What's the standing order you're referring to?
I'll look it up.
Then do so. Councillor Miles has the call.
And I'd remind Councillor Hore that he in fact admitted that he had attended this meeting when I last raised this as an issue in this place. That he said he had gone to that meeting with the Ward 2 Green candidate Geordie Williamson and spoken with the board of the Springwood Golf Club about the use of some part of Springwood Golf Course for social housing. It is true, and I won't get into how I know it's true, because I was told by someone who was at the meeting, and you confirmed it at a previous meeting in this place, which it's on the record that that's what you said. So here's the playing politics a little bit, and I'm glad Councillor Jamieson mentioned 2016, because the collapse of decency in our planning system is on both sides, and it started under the previous government. And it was one of many things that made me resign from the party that I loved, which is no longer the thing that I was a member of. It's something utterly different, a zombie compared to what it had been. But in that period, we saw firsthand the collapse of decency in the planning system, and there's no greater understanding of that than the 2 meetings that this council had with Minister Robert Stokes. And I think of these meetings often. The first meeting I attended, yourself, Mr. Mayor, the director and the state member, we had a great meeting with Minister Stokes, who has tertiary qualifications in environmental science and knew the Blue Mountains quite well and was enthusiastic about giving us an exemption from the low-rise housing code. No building in flame zone for unit housing, not under the then new Minister Robert Stokes's watch. But then he went and became Minister for Education. We got the Missing in Action Prue Goward, and then we got, I think, someone else, it might have been Anthony Roberts, which is even more unique. And then we got Robert Stokes back. And there was another meeting. And what did Robert Stokes say to us? Protect the Blue Mountains? No. He said, you're getting it and I don't care what you say, in effect. The Robert Stokes of a few years before had disappeared, and a new one, a new Minister for Planning, who was all the way with this kind of development. Building in flame zone in that sense, and utterly inappropriate development in this location. A location, I may add, where houses are burnt down before, and I mentioned number 6 Brougham Road, Katoomba, which is accessed off Cliff Drive, a very impressive looking 2-storey building burnt to the ground, and that block of land is still vacant. And anyone who actually buys it and might want to build would surely be thinking, is there going to be another bushfire? And a friend of mine lived next door, which is how I know it so well. I attended the neighbouring building many times, many times, and we have seen this house burned down. And now the New South Wales Planning Department is saying, we don't care. We're going to build whatever we want, and then we have all the issues raised with the reclassification of bushfire-prone land. So what you're seeing from 2016, it was in that period when you could feel something snap, something change. So for Councillor Hore to rise now and say, oh, this is a Minns Labor government, well, it's happening on the Minns Labor government watch, but this is nothing new. Why this has occurred, I think there's a long conversation. I would love to know why there is so much of a determination to make the Blue Mountains part of Sydney's or the New South Wales housing needs. I think it's ridiculous, and I think everyone knows that. And if this place at 150 Narrow-Neck Road burns to the ground, I'm sure that their thoughts and prayers will be with the families at this terrible time, and other empty statements. But they'll be long gone, possibly out of office, or they'll never be named because they work in the department and they're public servants. The people who are responsible for this are engaging in an act of wanton negligence, and we all know it. But I want to say again, Councillor Hore, please don't come to this place and say that you're opposition to something that you support elsewhere.
Thank you. Any further speakers?
Don't support it elsewhere.
Councillor Redshaw. Councillor Hore, I'll determine what's disorderly, and that's the third time I've called you to order, please. Councillor Redshaw has the call.
As far as I know, it's not illegal or suspicious to go to a meeting, especially one about social housing. And as the Mayor himself pointed out, nothing like this Narrow-Neck proposal has ever been put forward before in the Blue Mountains. Nobody here has been to a meeting proposing anything like this. And I think that needs to be stopped. This accusation about going to a meeting needs to stop. It's ridiculous. It's impugning motives, and that's not supposed to be okay under the Code of Conduct. So in regards to the Narrow-Neck proposal, I think we need to keep referring to it as a proposal. It is not a development. It is not successful. It won't be successful if we have our way. And that's the whole point here, is that we don't want to see anything like this developed in the Blue Mountains. Thank you.
Anything further? Councillors, there's one matter before us. Before I put it, I think if we could, with no election anywhere in sight, if we could refrain on issues like this from getting up and making speeches about one party or another and just focus on the merits of the argument. And then I think the debates would travel a lot better if that were the case. There's one matter before us. I'll put it. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, councillors, that brings me to the end of mayoral minutes. I'll just, rather than go on the table, I just want to note that item 10 will have to be withdrawn to allow Councillor Van Opdorp to leave the room. The matter of urgency in relation to commercial buildings on Pagoda Landscapes will automatically be pulled out, and that will enable Councillor Hollywood to leave the room. With those notations, I'll just ask Labor's Whip, what do you wish to pull out? I'm pulling out item 8 so that I can add some words to the Lurala motion, but I don't expect there to be debate on that. Councillor Fell?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like, in addition to those items that you've already detailed, I'd like to pull out items 11 and 13.
All right. Any other councillors wish to pull out any items? I've got the 2 matters of urgency already out. No other items from any other councillors? All right, then I'll ask you to take the following matters in globo. Item number, Councillor Hall, order. If you're going to have a conversation, Councillor Hall, can I ask you to go outside? It's disruptive. The following items are withdrawn, will be passed in globo. Items 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 12 and 14. That is moved, Councillor Fell, seconded Councillor West. All those in favour? Against? Declare them carried. Item number 8, I'll just come to that. It's on the screen. There's an additional number 4. You've all got an email today. It just notes that Ms Elizabeth Evatt and the Evatt family have suggested there is additional information and certain corrections to be made to the draft inventory sheet, and that given the Evatt family's long-held ownership of the site, this information be reviewed and incorporated into the final inventory sheet as appropriate prior to being presented to the Council's part of the future planning proposal report. The report is moved, Councillor Jamieson on Urala, and seconded Councillor Van Opdorp. Is there any debate? I'll put it. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried unanimously. Councillor Van Opdorp, I'd ask you to leave the room for item 10. If you stand outside, I'll ask one of the rangers if they kindly come and get you when we've done. Councillor Jamieson, you wish to move this item? I do. It's moved, Councillor Jamieson, seconded Councillor West. Councillor Jamieson has the call.
I won't take much of the council's time. I am the deputy chair of this committee. It works extremely well. We have a fabulous mixture of men and women on the committee. It's worked very well. I've only been on it 18 months, but I've learnt a lot. We're in a position now where, of course, there have been a couple of resignations. One because our police representative on the committee has taken a promotion elsewhere, and she's going to be a very great loss. I love sitting next to a woman in uniform with a Glock in her handbag. She's been a real asset because she has a fabulous general duties experience inside the police service in New South Wales, but she has a particular interest in domestic violence and has kept an eye on developments across the nation. So she's going to be a great loss, but I understand she's being replaced by someone very senior and very skilled. I'd also like to not just acknowledge and respect the work of Officer Atkinson, but also of Jude Sayers, who until recently has been the manager of the DV West organisation here in the local area. Again, a woman with huge experience in this area and with connections to the local Koori community as well. So she's been a real asset, and of course she's going to be replaced from the DV West organisation by another Van Opdorp. I mean, how many Van Opdorps does one need on one committee? I'm looking at the Dutch people in the back row there. Thank you. They've been fabulous.
Thank you. Does the seconder wish to speak? All right, there's one matter before us. There's no opposition, I take it. I'll put it. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried unanimously. If we could retrieve Councillor Van Opdorp, that would be wonderful. And we'll move on to item number 11. Who pulled this out? Councillor Hollywood. It's moved. The item is moved. You happy to move it? Yep. Councillor Hollywood moves. Councillor West seconds. I give Councillor Hollywood the call.
Thank you very much. People will be aware that I think it was at the council meeting before last that when this proposal for the combined zone cross country to take place at South Lawson Park was raised, that I expressed quite a number of concerns about the fact that this was being brought here because, in fact, the numbers, 400 students / competitors and 400 spectators, actually well exceeded the number of people that could be accommodated at the park under the plan of management. So just to remind people that the plan of management ceiling was 500, and it needed to come to council to allow for this additional amount of people. So we're now looking at 300 above the ceiling for the plan of management. We're also seeing the use of this space for something that is not contemplated in the plan of management. We had very long and deep discussions with the community over many years that this, including proponents that wanted it to be a sporting facility and turned into sporting grounds, that did not actually take place. So the plan of management, it's not a sporting facility, it's passive recreation. Now, what I want to draw attention to, just in case for my colleagues who supported, I'm very grateful, supported the amendments that I made about getting a report back on how this event goes. I do want to note that I wasn't, and because we passed it, we weren't jumping at shadows. It is noted in the discussion and in the minutes of the meeting that Transport for New South Wales did not have any initial concerns, but noted that the increase in cars and buses into the area should be considered in the traffic plan. And I also note that the police were trying to see whether we had any spaces on the golf course to take the vehicles so that they weren't being parked in the streets. Now, that isn't possible. In fact, we spent a rather large amount of money repairing the riparian zones and creating car parking areas at the top of Wilson Street and down near Lawson Oval. But it's to accommodate the kinds of uses that we're actually expecting and which the plan of management and the master plan planned for and that we've delivered. So I just do want to note that both the police and Transport for New South Wales have raised concerns as well. And I wanted to close with actually asking a question, because this report is from March. I'd like to ask a question through the Mayor to our CEO and to the relevant staff. Has the Local Traffic Committee received, or Council received, a traffic management plan? And when will the councillors be briefed on that? And will that happen prior to the event taking place? And have we determined whether it's the 15th or the 22nd? So I'm really asking for a bit more of an update.
And I'll just reframe the question of the public record. Not will the councillors be briefed, when will the councillors be informed?
Informed, sorry,
Yeah,
yes.
thank you.
Yes, informed.
Through you, CEO, to the
Thank
appropriate
you.
officer.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Ryder.
Leadership team will be briefed on the status and the next steps. The traffic management plan at the first available leadership team meeting, which.
Can I clarify that would be before the event takes place? I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, nor do I. The answer is, firstly, I don't know what was happening there, and it wasn't me, and the director indicates it will be before the event takes place.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much. Anything else on this item? One matter before us. I'll put it. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried unanimously. Item number 13 is moved Councillor Buckham, seconded Councillor Fisher. And before Councillor Buckham takes the stand, can I ask, is Councillor Fell and are Councillors Fell and Van Opdorp going to survive the night? Because both of you appear to not be breathing during parts of the previous item. You're okay? Yeah. You will. Councillor Fell notes for the record that he'll breathe a bit extra later to catch up. Councillor Van Opdorp, you remain alive? I'm alive. All right, that's good to hear. Councillor Buckham, the floor is yours. And if anything did happen to either, we have a doctor in the house. Yeah.
Tonight I find myself in the rather odd position of arguing for hand hygiene. One would have thought after 2020 this was no longer a debate, but here we are. I rise to state my belief that the provision of soap in public toilets is not a luxury. It is an essential component of basic hygiene. Effective hand washing with soap is widely recognised by all health authorities to be one of the most important measures of preventing the spread of infectious diseases. While water alone may remove visible dirt, it is far less effective at eliminating harmful bacteria and viruses. Without soap, these pathogens can remain on the hands and be easily transmitted to others through shared surfaces and everyday interactions. Public toilets serve large numbers of people each day and are therefore critical points for either controlling or spreading illnesses. The absence of soap undermines hygiene standards and increases the likelihood of disease transmission within the broader community. Also, the consistent availability of soap encourages proper hygiene habits. When people have access to well-maintained facilities, they are more likely to wash their hands thoroughly. And so I was initially pleased when I read the council officer's response to my motion, which states that Blue Mountain City Council currently provides soap to all flushable toilets in the LGA, and that any toilets that do not have it in the dispensers have been taken or damaged. Therefore, the staff support the motion, as it will have no cost to implement. Effectively, my motion is pointless. Excellent, job done. Why am I standing to speak? I took the opportunity afforded to me by our unexpected public holiday yesterday to survey the facilities in Ward 4. Using the National Public Toilet Map app, I set off. It started well. The toilets at Glenbrook Park have 2 dispensers over 3 sinks. Fantastic. Next, I went to St John's Road Playground, but sadly the toilets there were locked, so I cannot comment. Then off to Blaxland Town Centre toilets. There, the toilets have soap at the main sink, but unfortunately there was no soap available near the sink in the accessible cubicle. From then on, sadly, I have to report it only got worse. Lennox Park in Blaxland and Reservoir Road Park in Mount Riverview both have only 1 cubicle for each sex and has no soap in those cubicles. While it is possible that the good citizens of Ward 4 are particularly prone to solving their cost of living crisis 1 soap dispenser at a time, I think it's slightly more likely that there are in fact numerous toilets in the Blue Mountain City Council, LGA, that have in fact never had soap dispensers. Should my motion be passed tonight, perhaps these 3 toilet blocks can be a place for council officers to start remedying the problem. I feel soap in public toilets is a fundamental necessity. It protects health and supports the well-being of the community. It is a small measure with significant impact that should no longer be neglected in the Blue Mountains. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Buckham. The seconder wish to speak.
No, thank you. I don't think I've got anything to add.
That was quite excellent. Anyone else wish to speak? Well, Councillor Buckham, well done. I'll put it. All those in favour? Against, carried unanimously. Councillor Buckham, well said, well spoken. All right, mayoral matters of urgency, I have 2. I've declared both to be urgent. The first one relates to, I'll ask Councillor Hollywood to perhaps leave the room, and we will retrieve you in due course. The first relates to commercial building on Pagoda Landscapes. It's moved Councillor Redshaw and seconded Councillor Hoare. I deem the matter to be urgent. Councillor Redshaw has the call.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I don't know if many of you know of the proposal. This is in the Gardens of Stone State Conservation Area, which is a national park in waiting and is under the management of National Parks. And the government before this one, dare I mention a government, started this process whereby a private developer could put a development on these grounds. And this somehow or other is still circling around and is being regarded as a possibility by the current government. So it's highly problematic because of the delicate area that it's proposed to put it in. It's, again, for high-end accommodation, so we can call it glamping, but there are buildings that would need to be built on this sensitive area, and there would need to be facilities related to those units or whatever they're called. And the potential for roads to be put closer to these areas, which is a serious problem not only for that particular area, but for development in national parks generally in setting a precedent. And we're being told by the current government that this is not going to be the case, but we're still in danger of being in that position if this sort of development goes ahead. So I hope that we are all, and the decision apparently is imminent on whether this will go ahead or not. And it would be another travesty if it was to go ahead. And as I said, it could set a very nasty precedent. National parks are a mental health asset. They actually increase people's mental health, having access to national parks. And that's because they're natural. They're natural areas that are meant to be kept as natural as possible. They are not there to be developed into commercial operations. So I hope that you can support this matter of urgency. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. The second who wishes to speak.
Look, I rise just very briefly to commend the comments of my colleague, to ask for your support and to acknowledge the tremendous work that has been done on this issue by the Blue Mountains Conservation Society, by Wilderness Australia, and particularly by Keith Muir, who has been campaigning on this for a very long time with a great deal of technical expertise and energy. Thank you.
Thank you. As is my practice with matters of urgency, unless there's any opposition, I'm just going to put it. No opposition. One matter before us, I'll put it. All those in favour. Against, declare it carried unanimously. The second matter of urgency relates to the way the government expresses the Victoria Passes closure, which is giving people the impression that the Blue Mountains is closed. It's moved by Councillor Redshaw, seconded Councillor Hoare. I deem it is urgent because of the immediate impact on local businesses. Councillor Redshaw has the call.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Did we locate the Deputy Mayor?
She wasn't there.
Right. Councillor Redshaw has a call.
This issue was raised at the Merrill Reference Group for Business last week, and there was an interesting story about the Blackheath butcher having no meat to sell because the delivery driver saw a sign on the motorway that said Great Western Highway closed. And when you're going along the motorway and you're not familiar with the area, that could mean anything and you can't stop to check it. So he abandoned delivery to Blackheath. And this is the kind of thing that people are trying to deal with at the moment, with signs that say Great Western Highway closed, when you can only give very brief information to people as they're driving at 100 or 80 on the highway. So it would be good if they didn't use the term closed and found another way to alert people to what I would call a detour around the Victoria Pass. So I'm hoping that the department can come up with some solutions that are less problematic for our local businesses. Thank you.
Second who wishes to speak? All right. Okay. There's no opposition, I take it? One matter before us, I'll put it. All those in favour? Against, declare it carried unanimously. Just check with the Executive Officer. That brings us to a close of the business. Don't look so excited. Thank you, councillors, for your attendance tonight. That brings the meeting to an end. So it's moved, Councillor West, seconded Councillor Buckham, that the meeting be closed. All those in favour? Against, declare it carried unanimously. Thank you.